Hi everyone, I am Dr.V.VIJI, Associate Professor, PG and Research Department of Economics, A.D.M.COLLEGE, Nagapattinam. Today we have to see macro theories of distribution. So many economists, they have to define the macroeconomic theories. We have to see one by one. First of all, we have to know the meaning of distribution. The term distribution in economics refers to personal distribution and functional distribution of income. Personal distribution relates to the forces governing the distribution of income and wealth among the various individuals of a country. It is the pattern of the distribution of national income and the shares received by the different classes. Personal distribution or the size distribution of income relates to the individual persons and their incomes. The way in which that income was acquired often remains in the background. Functional distribution or factor share distribution explains the share of total national income received by each factor of production. It relates to rent, wage, interest and profit. Algebraically, P is the function of A, B, C, D. Total output is P. Function is F for land, A for labor, B for capital and C for organization is D. First we have to see the Ricardian theory of distribution. The famous economist Ricardo, they have to define how to distribute the rent to the land. It is based on his principle of differential rent as applied to the economic system as a whole. Here, the Ricardian theory is based on so many assumptions. Now, let us see the assumptions one by one. Land is used in producing a corn. Here, the Ricardian theory based on land. Then, the theory it is based on law of diminishing returns to scale. Then the third assumption is fixed in supply. Fourth assumption is perfectly inelastic. Capital and labor are one input. Then the next assumption is technical knowledge. Technical knowledge, sometimes it may be varied. Here, according to Ricardian theory, the technical knowledge may be a constant phenomenon. Then subsistence wage. Next one is labor of price is constant. Then the next one is marginal productivity of labor. And the last one assumption is perfect competition. Here we have to see the diagrammatical explanation of the Ricardian theory of distribution. Here we have to take an example of in the vertical axis production of corn, in the horizontal axis the level of labor. Here MP, AP. Here MP represents marginal productivity and AP represents average productivity. Here we have to measure how to measure the rent for a land. Here the first we have to take the average production level OM. The labor is utilized to OM level. The total output is MR or OQ. This is the total output, total production of the land. Here we have to measure the wage level and the rent level. Here OMLW, it is the measurement of wage. The remaining position WLRQ, this is goes to rent. Then the labor level is increased from OM to ON. In this situation, the total rent is increased from WLRQ to WSBA. This is the rent level. This is the theory it is given by Professor Ricardo. The position when the labor level is increased from one level OM to ON, in that situation automatically the rent level also increased from one level to another level. It is on the basis of marginal productivity of labor and average productivity of labor. Next. Here labor is represented as horizontal axis. Corn is represented as vertical axis. The amount of labor and capital are employed. Average productivity represents average product and MP represents marginal product of labor. With OM amount of capital and labor is OQRM. Total corn is produced, its average product is RM and marginal product is DM. Rent per unit of labor being the difference between AP and MP is RT. That is RM minus TM. Total rent is shown by the rectangle PQRT. That is RT into PT, rent per unit, multiplied by the number of laborers employed. Total output of corn OQRM, total output PQRT goes to the landlords as in the form of rent. Remaining output to OPTM will be divided between labor and capital. OW is the subsistence wage per labor who needs a minimum of OW amount of corn for his subsistence. WL is the supply curve. OWLM is the share of labor in total output. Remaining output WPTL is profits. Algebraically, WPTL is equal to OQRM minus PQRT plus OWLM. According to Ricardo, this is a natural tendency for the profit rate to fall in the economy so that the country ultimately reach the stationary state. When capital accumulation rises with the increase in profit, total output increases, which rises the wage fund. Increase in wage fund, population increases, which rise the demand for corn and its price. Now we move on to another concept given by Professor Ricardo. Here we have to take an example of wage and profit explanation of this diagram. Here we have to take an example of the x-axis represents the total wage and population level. Here we have to take two level curves. One is profit, another one is wage. Here the horizontal axis represent wage and profit level. Here the population is one level to another level, N1, N2, N3. Whether the population is increased from N1, N2, N3 up to one level, then the wage also increased from W1, W2, another W3 level. But the profit, here we have to measure the profit, that is R1, R2, R3 or S level. Here we have to compare when the population is increased from N1 to N3, wage also increased from W to W3, but the profit is increased from R1 to R2. In the intersecting level of profit and wage curve, both are equal at the level, the profit is 0. Whenever wage is more and population also increased in the economy, automatically the profit goes to 0. This is the equilibrium of S. Here we have to see the explanation of this diagram. OW3, it is equal to wage fund. W is real wage rate. R1, W1, it is the rate of profit equal to investment at N1 level. K, Q and L increases to R2 level. Now the total wages increased to W2 and profit move from R to W2. The process goes on till point S. Here profits are 0. No investment and growth. This is the stationary state of the explanation given by Ricardo. Now we move on to the criticism of this theory. First one is not a functional theory. Here Ricardo explained the theory, the Ricardian theory of distribution. It is based on rent only. At the same time, it is not functional theory. It is only one factor, price. Then next criticism is land does not produce corn only. Here in our economy or any other economy, we have to take an example of so many production produced through land. But here Ricardian theory based only production of corn. So this is one more criticism of this theory. Then the third one is capital and labor are independent factors. Sometimes capital are dependent factors. Sometimes we have introduced a product or we are in an entrepreneur. In that situation, we have to use more of capital instead of labor. Sometimes we have to introduce more of labor instead of capital. So in those times, the capital labor is dependent factor. But here, according to Ricardo, the capital labor is independent factor. So it's one more criticism of this theory. Interest is separate from profit. Here the theory, it is not explained about interest. But we have seen the factor price, 4 factor price, it is important in income. When we have to take on capital, in that situation we have to distribute some interest for the capital. So here the interest is separate from the profit. So it's one more criticism of this theory. Then the next one is neglect the role of techniques. Sometimes in whether we have to take an example of capitalistic economy or mixed economy, here we have to change the science and technology. Sometimes we have produced a corn in traditional methods, sometimes we have to produce a corn in modern methods. In that situation, the total production, that is MP, AP, it will be differ. So this is the theory, it is neglect the science and technology of this theory. Wage increases, then population also increases. Here, according to Ricardian theory, when population is moved from one level to another level, it is increased. At the same time, wage also increased from one level to another level, but profit goes to 0. But in case of when population is increased, then the wage sometimes it is wage is not always move up. Sometimes the wage may be less. So this is the explanation. It is ignored in this theory. So this is also one more criticism of this theory. Then neglect competitive pricing of land. Whether nowadays the land price, that is the value of the land, will be shifted from one level to another level, or the price of land is more, sometimes it will be less. But the Ricardian theory does not explain the value of the land or pricing of land. So this is also one more criticism of this theory. Then we move on to another theory of distribution. This is called the marginal productivity theory of distribution. The marginal productivity theory is in fact neoclassical theory of distribution, derived from the marginal principle of the Ricardian theory of distribution. According to this theory, of the reward of a factor equal its marginal product. By measuring units of factors in terms of their market value, marginal productivity analysis is reduced at absurdum. For example, if a firm finds it more profitable to substitute machines for costly labor, it will do so. The substitution of cheaper factors for the dearer will continue till the marginal revenue productivity of each factor is equal to its price. At this stage, the factors of production are employed in their most efficient combination, or the least cost combination, and the profits of the firm will be maximized. Moreover, substitution also takes place between different units of the same factor. There being perfect mobility in the factor market, units of a factor tend to move from one use where their marginal revenue productivity is low to another use where it is high till it is equalized for all the units in different uses. Now we have to see the diagrammatical explanation of this marginal productivity theory of distribution. Here we have to take marginal revenue of the product, average revenue of the product, units of factors in the x-axis, revenue cost price in the y-axis. Here we have to take another two components, average fixed cost and marginal fixed cost. Here we have to compare the cost and the revenue. Here we have to see 4 equilibriums, A, B, C, D, one more is E. Here the marginal productivity theory of distribution, it is support the equilibrium of A. Whenever the ARP it is equal to AFC, average revenue of the product, that is equal to average fixed cost, that is equilibrium level. In this level, the distribution also equally to the factor price. Then the factors it is OQ level. The price of the commodity is OP. In this situation, AFC, MFC, that is equal to ARP, that is equal to MRP. This is the situation explained by the marginal productivity theory of distribution. Then in case of we have to take another equilibrium A, B, C, D here, when the price of the commodity will be changed at the same time the total units, that is the total output also, it will be reduced from Q to Q1, it is increased from Q to Q2. Next. Diagram explanation, that is ARP that is equal to MRP and both are equal to the average reward and marginal reward of the factor services. Thus, each factor services will be paid OP price for OQ units. Suppose the factor price rises to OP, at this price, firms will be incurring AP per unit of loss as the price being paid to factor units is greater than their average revenue productivity. Then the theory based on some assumptions. Here we have to see some important assumption of this theory. First one is all the factors of production are homogeneous. Here this theory based on the production of each and every firm, it is homogeneous characters. The next assumption is factors of production can be substituted for each other. Sometimes labor is substituted to capital, sometimes the capital is substituted to labor. In that way, each and every factors of production can be substituted for each other. Then the third one is there is perfect competition both in the factor market and in product market. Here perfect competition means each and every firm comes under competitive nature. There is perfect mobility of factors of production. Here we have to use so many inputs for the purpose of production, each and every factors, that is mobilizing characters. Then the next one is there is full employment of factors. Here, according to classical economists, they have to say the economy maintain full employment. Those ways, here the theory also based on full employment of factors. This theory is applicable only in long run. Then the entrepreneurs aim at profit maximization. There is no government intervention in fixing the price of a factor. So, according to classical economists, they have to aim the laissez-faire policy. In that way, there is this theory also based on laissez-faire policy. So, there is no government intervention in fixing the price of a factor. There is no technological change. This theory is based on the following assumptions. All units of a factors are homogeneous. Factors are not perfectly mobile. There is no perfect competition. Factors are not fully employed. All factors are not divisible. Production is not the result of one factor alone. Profit motive is not the main motive of this theory. Then we move on to Kalecki's degree of monopoly theory. Kalecki developed the degree of monopoly theory of distribution. According to him, the relative share of labor's income or wages in gross national product is negatively related to both the degree of market power and the ratio of raw materials. Cost is relative to labor cost. In order to show this, Kalecki uses the Lerner measure of the degree of monopoly power. It is defined as beta is equal to P minus MC. P represents, P is the price per unit of product. MC denotes the marginal cost of the product. And Y is inverse of elasticity of demand. Marginal cost is assumed here to consider cost of labor, cost of raw materials and overhead cost. Kalecki also assumes that there exists ideal capacity. This implies that the firm's short-run marginal cost curve is constant and parallel to horizontal axis, and it also coincides with the short-run average variable cost curve. The amount of profit, interest, depreciation and salaries depend on by how much the price of product exceeds the marginal cost. The formal derivation of Kalecki's relations of factors income distribution is given below. Let us consider by A is equal to average profit per unit of product OA. It is equal to average overhead of interest, depreciation and salaries WA, that is equal to average wage RA, that is equal to average raw materials cost. Further, we assume that MC is equal to OM plus WM plus RM, where OM, WM and RM represent marginal overhead cost, marginal wage cost and marginal raw material cost respectively. Then price can be determined as price is equal to by A plus OA plus WA plus RA. Then P is equal to MC is equal to profitable A plus OA minus OM plus WA minus WM plus RA minus RM. Since we assume the marginal wage cost and marginal raw materials costs are constant, then WA minus WM is equal to 0 and RA minus RM is equal to 0, and also assumes that the marginal overhead cost is negligible. Hence, we obtained P minus MC is equal to by A plus OA. Multiplying both sides by output of the firm Y, we have Y within bracket P minus MC is equal to by A Y plus OA Y. Since from definition we know beta is equal to P minus MC P, then P minus MC is equal to beta P over beta PY is equal to by A into Y plus OA. The summing over the economy we obtained summation of beta Py is equal to summation of Y by A plus OA. Now denote aggregate entrepreneurial income and aggregate overhead cost in the above relation as C and O respectively. We have summation beta Py is equal to C plus O. The aggregate turnover or total revenue in Kalki's model is defined as TR is equal to summation of beta P. Then beta is equal to C plus O. TR is referred as the weighted average of the degree of monopoly in the economy. That this beta measure the degree of monopoly power of the whole economy. The domestic aggregate output or national income of the economy can be written as Y is equal to C plus O plus W, where Y represents domestic national income or output and W is aggregate wage bill. Then the following relations can be written as C plus O is equal to Y. Then the beta is equal to Y minus W total revenue, or beta total revenue W is equal to Y minus W, or beta TRW is equal to YW minus 1 or YW is equal to 1 plus beta TRW or WY is equal to 1. Beta TRW, the factor WY is the share of wage in domestic national income. The above relation reveals that the share of wages inversely depend on the degree of monopoly power and the ratio of total turnover to aggregate wage bill. Then this Kalki's model is criticized by some other economists. First one is degree of monopoly not properly defined. So this theory it is not properly defined. This is the first and foremost criticism of this Kalki's model. Prime cost plus markup determine price. Prime cost not constant. Neglects the influence of trade unions. Not a theory but an explanation. Neglects the role of technical progress. Ignore many factors. Small firms also need higher profit margins. Explains little. Difficult to aggregate micro degree into the macro degree. Here the Kalki's model is criticized by some other economists. Now we move on to the conclusion. We may conclude that the marginal productivity theory is not an adequate explanation of the determination of the pricing of factor in two respects, demand side of the factor pricing, and therefore is one-sided. It is worked under the restricted assumption of perfect competition. Thank you.